What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Yolo, the new comedy drama film from Jia Ling, the top female director in the Chinese film industry, you could say. This is her follow-up to her film Hi Mom from just a few years ago, which grossed over $848 million, primarily in China, making it the third highest grossing Chinese movie of all time. And it was the highest grossing film solo directed by a woman until Barbie, of course, came out last year. So a kind of upstart filmmaker turned commercial behemoth in China. And Yolo is her follow-up. And this, of course, was the number one film at the Lunar New Year box office this past year, last month, which, of course, is a very lucrative time for Chinese film going, as people know. And Yolo has already grossed nearly $500 million, again, primarily in China. And I think that makes it like the 17th highest grossing film of all time from China, with Hai Man being number 3. So again, like the accolades are quickly rising on the box office front. And Yolo got a small limited release in the US from Sony Pictures International, about 200 theaters or so, and it actually grossed about 840,000. Not bad for a small release, a small international film. This is based off the 2014 Japanese film 100 Yen Love. It's set in the present day in Guangzhou, and it stars Ling as Du Leying. She's a 30-something college graduate who's very apathetic, very unmotivated. She's overweight. She isn't working, and her family doesn't know what to do, and she seemingly is not very happy. And it's basically a story about Lei Ying through kind of, trials and tribulations, getting her act together, basically, despite being a bit of a people pleaser, someone who's been taken advantage of. And ultimately, it leads to this drastic physical transformation for star Jia Ling, where she loses, over 100 pounds, starts the film as a very overweight woman, leads to this scene where she's training to be a boxer because Du Leying, her character, seems to find her center again when she starts pursuing a boxing coach in her local town, the coach paid by Lei Jiaying. And that interest in the boxing coach leads to her genuinely using boxing as a way to motivate herself. And she, over the course of over a year, gets herself into the chance to actually do a competitive boxing match, despite being obviously a newcomer to the sport. And, this is a film that I'd say it starts pretty slow. I like the end a lot more than the beginning, but the first act is ultimately a chore because Lei Ying, she's just not likable because she's so unmotivated, living at home, seemingly rude to her family that she's kind of living off of and around. I just didn't really like that persona. And I think it's weird because the movie takes such strong tonal shifts where there's a lot of comedy elements in the beginning, but then once we get into that training montage stuff, there's a lot more seriousness to it. I mean, we literally get the Gonna Fly Now Rocky theme song regarding someone training for boxing. A little on the nose, I would say. But I think when it gets more dramatic, it's at least a little bit more interesting. I think the stuff with Lei Ying going on the reality TV program and how humiliating that is, thought that was pretty compelling. I think the issue that I think some people have had with this movie is what Yolo says about body image. It takes a pretty negative stance on, not having the traditional body image. It's a pretty traditional view on this sort of things, and it's presenting Lei Ying losing over 100 pounds through boxing training as this very idealistic thing. And not that there's anything wrong with holding those ideals, but it seems to definitely be very focused on pushing that sort of body image, which of course is not the most inclusive message. I can understand why that could bother some people. I think it's at least kind of a bit heavy-handed in how it holds it up as idealistic, but ultimately I think the training stuff is fun, and Jia Ling's chemistry with Lei Jianyin, once they start doing stuff at the boxing gym, it's pretty fun. There's probably just too many plot threads with this movie. It runs pretty long. It's over 2 hours. And again, that first act just felt so slow and stagnant. Maybe if it was trimmed a little bit, the tonal shifts wouldn't be nearly as obvious. Who can say? But I thought the movie was interesting, but not quite my favorite of the Chinese blockbusters I've seen recently. I certainly was more partial to the number one movie at last year's Lunar New Year, of course, Full River Red. I was much more interested in that. Yolo, though, seems to have really struck a chord, even if it has a bit of a polarizing message. But it was a solid effort, and I mean, Jia Ling, she certainly is a interesting filmmaker, given her past accolades with her Fast 2 movies. So obviously she's someone who should be paid attention to. That much is clear. But yeah, let me know, how did you feel about Yolo? Did you like it more or less than me? Let me know. Of course, make sure you check out my review of another Lunar New Year release, Zhang Yimou's Article 20. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.